Today, I'm talking with Melissa Shin Mash, co-founder and CEO of performance bag brand Dagne Dover. Melissa came up with the idea for Dagne while leading a turnaround of Coach, the first UK EU location in 2009, where she saw the opportunity for a culturally relevant, digitally native bag brand that paired performance with smart design. Today, Melissa is also thinking about ways to live smarter, better, which we'll certainly talk about through products, services we use, to the workplace, policies that push our society forward. Melissa and her co-founders are passionate about setting a new standard of leadership, company culture, and workplace norms in hope of creating a better society. Melissa is a graduate of New York University and the Wharton School of Business. Hello.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for coming. I'm so excited. As I was saying, I know your brand. I love your brand. I live very close to the store on Lafayette in Manhattan. But for anyone out there that's been under a rock, can you give the quick elevator pitch for the Dagne Dover brand?
Sure. So we've been in business for over 12 years. As you mentioned, we are a performance bag brand. And what that means is that we really try to be there for any part of your life in which you need a bag to depend on. So we very much are at the intersection of fashion as well as function and really just making sure that we're super thoughtful in our designs, whether it's a diaper bag, whether it's a work bag, a travel bag, a sling, and everything else in between.
Amazing. And then can you talk about the trigger? Like, how did you come up with Dagne? Like, was it just too many bags that were rubbish, didn't work well?
Yeah, I had a lot of bag problems in my youth, I'd say. I'd say one time while I was in college, I was studying abroad. I had a phone that I had rented. This was back in whatever it was, 2004. And, I had rented it. And of course, my water bottle, the cap had become loose and it had ruined the whole inside of my bag and it had broken the phone. And I had to spend thousands of euros to, not thousands, hundreds of euros to replace it. And it was just a disaster. And it's like, oh, if I just had a bag that allowed a water bottle to stand upright instead of having to be on the bottom, like this wouldn't have happened, Or when I worked at Coach Corporate in New York, prior to moving to London, they had given me a really nice bag. It retailed for almost $1,000. It was clearly meant to be for like the ultimate businesswoman, but it was 6 pounds without anything in it, and it couldn't even fit a laptop because of the way it was shaped. So what was the point of that? And I would carry that. It was the nicest bag I owned, so I would carry it every day. Again, I was working at the airport this time. I was working, to fix their first store in the EU, UK. And, it wasn't working for me, and through that experience of being near all these long-standing European brands in the terminal, there was Dior, Prada, Mulberry, Gucci, and then of course there was still Kors and Tumi in there as well. People were looking for something that didn't exist. They had every option at their fingertips and it wasn't satisfying. They needed something that could help them fly to, another country, endure whatever weather was happening in London as well as wherever they were going, go to the office, go out for the night, and maybe even fit in a gym session in between. And there was really no brand that was catering to this lifestyle of being really on the go, having a multifaceted life. And frankly, also where a bag didn't need to cost, let's call it over $1,000, like so many of these bags did. And having known this from my experience at Coach Corporate and also having seen some other inefficiencies, I guess, within just sort of standard retail practices, I knew that I could create a new brand that was really for our generation where our values were reflected. The fact that you shouldn't have to compromise between function and beauty. It can all be wrapped up into one was born. And so Dagne actually means new day. It's a Nordic word. And Dover is the last name of one of my co-founders, Jesse, who's our chief creative officer. And so our brand is really meant to represent a new standard of what people ought to expect out of their products.
Amazing. And yeah, it's amazing that there weren't, you really had to choose from ugly or stylish.
Yes.
So how was there a trigger? Like, how did you decide to leave this great, glamorous sounding job at Coach and actually start the brand?
Yeah, so I had gone there. I had moved there. I wanted to move to London, and they had said like, actually, we have a perfect job for you. This is great. Can you please fix these problems that we have there? So I was a consultant for the store, and then through this experience of having this idea for this brand, I was like, I want to go to business school. I want to. I had never studied business in undergrad. I had a liberal arts degree, and I felt like everything that I knew was from the job, and I really wanted to go and get formal business training and also have a breeding ground to be able to bounce these ideas and do the appropriate studies, whether it be for pricing, whether it be for segmentation, competitive landscape, all that in an environment that would help me launch the brand as well, instead of just trying to do it on my own as someone who had never had that foundation. So I went back to business school the following year, and it was through that I was looking for my co-founding team. I definitely wanted someone on the business side with me who was much more I'd say analytical and much more analytically driven. My background obviously was much more in front facing types of roles. Prior to leaving for my role in London, I had managed brick and mortar wholesale accounts at Coach, and as well as helping establish the whole wholesale e-commerce channel. So I really wanted someone with a different set of experiences. And I also wanted a design partner. I wanted someone who could be the creative visionary and the face of the brand. I felt that it was important for us to be a balanced founding team. And I also felt it was important for our customers to be able to relate to not just one type of person, because our brand is it hopefully was going to become so much more than just that. And just from my own experience as a consumer, looking at all these brands where it was just one person's name or like one 60-year-old man, and it was like products for like younger women, let's say, like that I wanted to make sure that we always had appeal and that people could identify themselves in our brand.
Yeah, so inclusive and for everyone from the beginning.
Multidimensional,
Um,
yes. And
yeah,
if you meet us, myself, Deepa, and Jesse, you'll see that like we have a lot in common, but we also have very different experiences in terms of our work in retail prior, and very different sort of lenses and things that we do that fill our cup, and things that we do that reflect our lifestyle too. And that's exactly what Dagne is. You can't define it as one type of thing, but it's someone who's busy and living with purpose.
yeah, I get a very good sense of who you're designing for. Do you do research? Like, do you do consumer research, or it's more like, tell me about the kinds of ways that you kind of get inspired and understand your consumer and design for them?
Yeah, so we have always believed in pull marketing, where we wanted to definitely make sure that we were getting feedback before we had um, I don't know, the audacity to think that we know what people want. Of course, we did, but you have to be very specific in terms of what they want in order to make sure that you really do have product market fit. So we surveyed and focus grouped over 1,000 women and men at the beginning of our journey. This was done through being at business school and having a captive community of people who were willing to not only help us launch this and produce, first samples and all of that, but really people who had a stake in it. They wanted a solution too. They didn't like the solutions that existed. And so that was really valuable. And once we did design our first styles, we sold over $40,000 worth of product in the first few months. And that allowed us to kick off our fundraise for our seed round. So it was
And
all very
is
quick.
that selling to business school people or generally?
A lot of them, so we started selling to people who had been in our network, and we said, this is
Yeah.
what the product looks like. This is what it's priced at. Would you buy it? And a lot of people did, but then they also sent the link around to their friends, family. And, after a while, we didn't know, every single person on the list too. So it really was like, hey, finally, there's a solution for us who have been struggling with this problem of wanting to have a beautiful bag, but wanting it to also be organized and really functional.
Amazing. So I take it business school worth it.
So worth it. So worth it. But I think that, I mean, whenever people ask me if business school is worth it, I'm very specific in saying, I think it's worth it for a very specific set of circumstances. Some people need a break because, their industries are, it was, like you got to go for a reason. Some people just don't know what they want to do. And if that's the case, I think you have to be very intentional about the time that you're spending there. For me, I knew I was going back to start a business. So for me, I wanted to chair the entrepreneurship conference, which I did. I wanted to obviously through that be able to make relationships with investors and other entrepreneurs. And then of course, launch this brand. So I think that it can be done really well, and it can be done in a way that's just expensive.
Yeah, amazing. Um, so you launch, you get investment. How did you grow it? Like from friends and family and extended networks? Like, what was your approach to marketing, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, this was also a different era. This was like 2013, 2014 at the time. So it's on some platforms, advertising like Instagram advertising didn't exist then. We were really part of the first wave. And so, you could still have organic posts being seen by people and so there could be sort of relatively inexpensive measures. I'd say something that was really important to us is that we knew that we were not going to be a company that raised nearly as much money from the sources of capital that so many of our competitors chose to take money from. And so we needed to do more with less. And we decided that we'd rather put more money into the product itself and hope that through word of mouth, it will drive more sales because it's just so impressively great. And also from a values perspective as well, versus hey, we need to hype this up and we need to announce every raise and we need to, have like big splashy people carrying our stuff and paying celebrities and endorsements and stuff like that. We were never going to do that. And we still haven't to this day.
Yeah.
But so we knew that, if we're a product first company, we're putting more money in the product. Sure, there's less margin for us to be able to use for marketing, but this is our marketing strategy.
Yeah, interesting. Any particular product detail that you're especially proud of?
Something I'd say just talking about just like the beginning, people were so excited about the idea of this like bottle holder, right? This detachable, it snaps in, snaps out, water bottle holder or beverage holder so that it was insulating. You can have like a hot beverage or a cold beverage and it would be standing upright. And it's like so genius, but it didn't exist prior to us, or just like the key leash, right? Like, sure, we'd seen here or there, like tiny, like you can't use it. You have to unhook it but like the key leash shouldn't become like a thing in mass, acceptance or our society until we made it a standard, And so it seems like a really tiny solution, but also you got to get the measurement right. You got to make it so that it's actually usable at your door, usable on your car as well. So all those tiny details about what is the right drop length of this bag so that you can get it over your shoulder when you have a heavy winter coat on and you're not getting the friction point with your elbow. All those things matter in terms of if someone's reaching for that bag every day and saying, I don't want to carry any other bag. Like this is the one I'm depending on, almost like a personal assistant.
Yeah, it's funny. When I've worked with female founders, there are many times where in my head I'm like, this really only a woman could have done this. Like think practically about what actually works or would make this better. What do you think?
And actually, a lot of times at the beginning, especially when we were raising money and pitching and stuff like that, like a lot of men really doubted the business. And part of that is that we were talking to the wrong men. They were not necessarily consumer investors, and therefore they didn't know the customer we were going after. But also, it's because it wasn't their own lived experience because they had Toomey, Toomey existed, and it worked for them. That didn't exist for us. So yeah, I totally see there aren't a lot of women who are going to get funded. There aren't a lot of women who are going to have the particular sets of experiences that allowed us to be successful and put something out that had product market fit. So I think the whole thing is it led us to us being the one.
Um, what's been the hardest thing about going from more of a niche, a new brand to a kind of more mainstream brand? I'm assuming the tools, the skills, the kind of strategies change. Like when did that happen? Do you feel like you went more mainstream and how did you do it?
I still don't even know if we're mainstream, honestly. Like, like in certain circles, like in New York, we're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Even in LA, even though we don't have a store there, like it's all over LA. Like literally, I was there like a couple weekends ago. Every person who I mentioned who I was, they're like, showed me their bag, like literally my Uber driver's like, you mean this? Like, like it's like really interesting how it's definitely in certain markets, like super
Yeah.
strong. And then there's a whole part of the country, most of the infill that, unless it's like a strong commuter city or like a major hub, like you really don't know about us yet. So,
Yeah.
I guess that's where we are right now, where it's a totally different situation. We're a pretty small team. We're about 50 people. And the things that we did I don't want to even say the beginning, but the first 12 years are different from where we are right now and what we need to do. So, there's a team, there's individuals in terms of those who need to continue to be really adaptable. That's one of the things, but also like need to continue to grow in order for them to keep up with where we are as a company too. And then just getting into new categories that we haven't been into before. That's sort of what's on the horizon for 2026 and beyond. So that's really exciting.
beyond bags or still different types of bags?
Still
Yeah.
bags, but just like
Yeah.
different types of partnerships.
Yeah. Amazing. I'm curious. Obviously, you worked on the retail side, but going into your owned retail, um, it's both amazing because you create the environment, but a big, bold move. Do you have, like, what was the thinking behind that? And do you plan to open more retail?
So we had had very successful pop-ups in Soho prior, and we had very flexible situations with them, but the spaces weren't necessarily reflective of what we would do if we were actually going to invest in this and have it really reflect our values, our intention of how we want to use it and so on. So we luckily had a lot of data to support it, so it was not super scary when we signed, although it was like 3 months before COVID. And so that was unfortunate that we had to stop work and it took forever to actually get the store open, which is really just a sad part of being in retail during COVID. But the store, and for anyone who comes to New York, anyone who sees it, it's on Lafayette Street right at Prince. And it has beautiful light going in. And the materials that we chose on the inside are very much natural and meant to be create spaciousness. And even like it's not super crowded. We want to make space for wheelchairs, for strollers, for people's groups to stand in. We have lots of different types of events, from panels to book signings, private shopping events. So we're able to get, let's call it 80 people in the space easily at any time. We also have a test drive station in our store, which allows people to take out props. So fake laptops, breast pumps, fake food, Tupperware, water bottles that you might, normally carry, so that you don't have to bring your own stuff when you come to our store. You can use those dummies and you can say, oh, I think I need the large versus the medium, or this is how heavy it's going to be. Okay, I'm going to go with the size, so people are really satisfied. So we were really confident in what the store needed to be based off of our pop-up experiences. And we're just glad that we can share with our communities and different groups now.
Yeah, I love that. So it's not just distribution, it's community, it's creating a bigger
Absolutely.
sense of brand behaviors. I was also, I've been reading obviously a little bit about you and the company. Um, you know, it seems like you have had an intentional kind of thought about cultivating a positive culture. Talk to me a little bit about how you do this, how you focus on it, how you try and build the kind of culture for Dagne that you
Yeah.
want.
So I think that there are a lot of things that you can do to build culture, right? I mean, you can have offsites, you can have get-togethers, you can have buddy systems, and we do all these things. But I think that honestly, the most impactful thing in a company having a good culture is how human and how themselves the founders are, as well as senior leadership. There are a lot of organizations where they feel like they can't share certain information, or they don't want to be as transparent, or just like C-suite sits over there. And I think that like all of that sort of plays into what is allowed and what do I have permission to be, and how can I bring my true self to work, or do I have to kind of hide who I am and play a part? And I think that when people feel they can't be their true selves, that's when culture is not great. But if you feel like you can be your true self, you can collaborate, you can push back where you want to, and be respected, and of course do it in a respectful way and be respected, then it feels really good to go to work, and it doesn't feel so much like work. And that's really what we aim to do. I mean, Deepa, Jesse, and I, we all came from the retail industry, different parts of it, but we kind of saw some things that we just didn't love. And I think one of those was that just women were not at the top in an industry where they were selling primarily to women. Most of management was not. And that's not very motivating for especially women in their 20s who are entering the workforce, being like, what am I working for if I don't see a place for myself here? Or if women who have children are penalized from promotions or whatever it is, like, that's not a good sign to send to a young 20 something. So that was part of it. But also, can we just stop with the fear-driven culture? Can we just stop with the top-down hierarchical? I mean, obviously there needs to be some degree of hierarchy, but like let's be realistic about what we think actually a successful organization looks and feels like, and build from there. I'm not saying that we're all a family. I'm not saying that it's all kumbaya, but like there's a difference between what is the accepted norm in America versus what it could be.
Yeah, just being more intentional. I love that it kind of sounds very much how you design,
Yes.
practical, intentional, thinking about how it's used and felt. I'm just curious, I obviously I'm a strategist and I'm always interested in smaller brands or in fact brands within kind of fashion. Um, do you use kind of strategic frameworks or have articulated, vision, mission, positioning and stuff like that? How do you articulate, how you see the brand and communicate it and build that culture so that everyone understands?
I mean, so we do have certain pillars and everything like that, but honestly, it's more about how we operate, I'd say, on a daily, weekly basis and
Yeah.
what types of transparency we give and how frequently and the
Yeah.
types of information that people feel pulled into instead of feeling like they don't know what's going on in the company, like literally, on every weekly call. And I don't know if every company does this or if this is standard practice by any means, but like we go through health of business in all the ways, and we're very, like everyone knows what the challenges.
Transparent.
Yeah, everyone knows what the full challenges are, and everyone knows also like where we stand. So no one's blindsided by the fact that I had no idea that this is happening or whatever. And I think that I feel like you kind of owe it to your employees to be that transparent. So yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of noise right now?
Yes, and I don't know. I think it'll
Is that
be.
me? Like, what
I,
is that?
I think it might be, but we can
Okay, I have
tone it
no idea
out.
what that was. That was so weird.
Yeah,
Okay,
we can tone it out.
okay,
From the. Yeah, I don't know what it is either, but we can definitely get rid of it.
okay.
Yeah. Are there any decisions that you think you made in like the early years that had an outsized impact on where the brand is today?
I do think that kind of what I said earlier about investing in the product as the marketing was
Mhm.
one that was very atypical at the time, but has paid dividends, in terms of being certainly the right strategy and certainly allowing us to have around 50% of our customers who come to our site today are completely unpaid organic, typing in dagnedover.com, which is pretty incredible. So I think that just focusing on products so that it was sort of like less best, nothing else, no fluff, like one of our goals is definitely that we create best in class products for each category and not try to just produce more just for the sake of producing more or be like, we need to put out another bag next year. What's it going to be? Sure. Put that one out. No, it's like, if we can't feel like we're doing anything that's going to push our society, forward in terms of that bag being like actually the best one on the market, we don't need to do it. So that's something that's really important to us.
Yeah, that's refreshing. Not just more stuff. No one needs
Exactly.
just
We don't need
thousands
more
of
stuff. We
bags.
just need the best stuff. Yeah.
The best stuff. Are there any things that, you talked about funding and not necessarily going for some of the big numbers, the big funds, etc. Is there anything that you wish people would talk a little bit more honestly when it comes to building brands or, getting investment, funding, etc.?
Yeah, I think that there's like a real glorification of founders and entrepreneurship and founder culture. And I wish that I wish that we just lived in a little bit less of a curated, sort of like that's the expectation type of um society because this is hard and it's not glamorous. Like this is fun, we get to work with product, we get to produce beautiful visuals and stuff to tell a story, but like let's not fool everyone into thinking that like this is easy, glamorous, and or even something to aspire to. Like people need to find their own version of what is what will fulfill them. And I think that like fame or attention or recognition for something doesn't necessarily need to be for being a founder. So there's just a lot that comes with that and the expectation to like always be on, always be selling, and always be like a rep for the brand.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you almost have to, it looks like once you are a founder, you almost have to be that kind of founder
You're never
figure.
not a founder in society. Wherever you go, you're that person, and
Yeah.
actually some founders who just like don't do it. And it's like, I understand that because it's a lot of work and some people are not, their temperament's not suited for it, their personality, whatever the case is, or they just don't want to do it. Totally understand. But also what I think makes a brand special and what I do think makes a brand successful is that personal connection with customers. So again, I'm a big proponent for having multiple co-founders. I don't know how people I just think it's so hard to do it as a solo founder, because one of our biggest assets between Deepa, Jesse, and I are that we can all three split and divide and conquer for showing up at different events, which we want to go to. We want founder
Yeah.
presence there. We personally want to go and be able to meet our customers and hear the feedback and like feel the energy. Like that's important for us. But also it's really nice that we can divide and conquer amongst the three of us, so we can do more.
And so you've got a design focus partner in Jesse.
Yes.
You
And then Deepa's our COO.
Okay.
Deepa's our COO, but Deepa and I really, really split and, conquer everything on the business side.
Yeah. Any advice for picking founders, co-founders?
Oh, so much advice. I've met a lot of people throughout the years who just didn't know where to find someone. I totally get it. I mean, like when I got to business school, I had like connected with entrepreneurship groups and retail groups across like many different MBA programs, being like, hey, I'm looking for a co-founder. If anyone, knows anyone who would be interested in this, please let me know. And I met some people, but for the most part, I just didn't meet anyone who would be a good fit for me. And, when you're looking at a co-founder, it's certainly not just based on experience. That's a part of it for sure. For many reasons, but that is certainly not all of it. There's temperament, there's chemistry, there's, just grit is another big one. And can we all play well together? Not just ourselves, but like, how do they play with others, And especially because there are three of us, right? And two of us being on a business side and one of us being creative. So there's always dynamics. And sometimes dynamics are just too much for people, right? In your family or the workplace, or it doesn't matter what it is. Some people just don't do well with groups and don't do well with collaboration and don't do well with stress or many other things. And so only through a period of working together for about 6 months did we find that like, this is working well. All right, this is the team. Let's do it, but you really need that time together before you consummate anything to say like, we all feel good about this and we know what we bring to the table and like, let's go. And I think also just like not being cheap about things, don't be short-term oriented, like really think about what's going to incentivize the entire group to get there. This is not a short game. This is consider this a decade plus long type of commitment, and we want to be there. No, it would suck for someone to give up. Like it would be very complicated, so how do we make sure that we're set up for long-term success? And then backwards engineering, what's that profile look like? And that's not only for your co-founding team, but it's really about every part of the business, from how you intend to exit, if you intend to exit, to backwards engineer everything that will be required in order to hit those milestones, how much money you're going to need to raise, from whom, etc.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, like, so you actually kind of started almost before founding, seeing if you work well together and gelled before actually founding, you said, for 6 months?
It's more that we just like consummated the agreement after.
Yeah.
It's like, let's just see if this even works, let's just see if let's see how this is going.
Can we get on? But I love the idea. I do think having, I advise quite a few founders and within the founding teams, I'm always amazed that you spend all this time together that you haven't talked about, I mean, it's amazing how many times I see someone who wants out quickly and the other that doesn't, and they haven't spoken about that.
Yeah, and I think also that's hard if like someone has money to fall back on and like someone doesn't, like, I mean, two of us were MBAs, one of us was a designer, but no one was rich, no one could not like this. We all needed this to work. We still do. We haven't taken anything out of the business. Like we need this to work. So we are hungry and we're all equally motivated to keep doing well. Versus if you have some other, if you have some alternatives, then it changes things.
Yeah. Aligning your values, aligning your ambitions and goals. Amazing. I'm just curious, what for you makes a good brand?
Oh, I think that there are so many things that make a good brand. I think consistency, I think being able to evolve with society and tapping into the zeitgeist of what people want is really important. I mean, we've evolved in so many ways in our short 12 years in business, from our logo to like, our imagery to like the things that we really kind of, sort of like going deeper into like who we are as a brand and as people. So that's really great. I think quality, over hype. There are a lot of brands out there who are just about the hype, just about the sale. I think also, not being a one-trick pony, but showing that you could diversify beyond your initial success and continuing to give people what they want.
Yeah. Well, I think that is one of the most interesting things, especially in a world where things, there's so many trends, especially on social. How do you keep the essence but still keep things new? Like Dagny does partnerships to help with things like that. What are other ways that you keep your core but keep things fresh and evolve with culture?
I mean, it can be anything from like, we're like, I would definitely call ourselves like a color authority. So people love the colors that we drop, the stories that we tell with them, and they're hitting right at at the right moment. Hottest pink when the Barbie movie came out was just perfect timing, but other aspects as well. I mean, obviously we follow trend reports, but it's also a little bit of creating our own point of view about what the mood is. What are we feeling as we go into this fall? What are we feeling as we go into the spring? And it's not always everything, the same every year by any means. Like there's a lot culturally that's going on. There's a lot of feelings in the air, depending on what's happening. So it really is sort of our own point of view and our own interpretation. And we haven't actually done like any sort of like collab, like from a product standpoint, types of partnerships. But we have done things where we support, for example, like the U.S. women's national team for soccer. Before they went to the Olympics, they were all decked out in Dagne luggage and bags, and then they won and they came home and it was so great. And it's like there's certain things that we really want to support, women's sports being one of them. But in particular, we've had longstanding relationships with a lot of those players who just love our bags and we want to support them. And so we've been able to build those sorts of relationships around important cultural moments like sports and the World Cup, and many other things going on as well. Abbey
Yeah,
Heritage
so
Month.
yeah,
Yeah, like Deepa and I are both of Abbey Heritage, so like supporting different initiatives that go on around that time of year. Women, just like women trailblazers, there's a lot that we do around International Women's Day. So we love to show up for all sorts of occasions.
amazing. Um, you definitely seem very practical, grounded, confident in in the way you approach stuff. Any advice for women out there to just be more confident and kind of grow into how they kind of approach life and career and deciding what they want to do?
I think in kind of not to generalize by age, but I think in your 20s, you're just learning like what the rules are and you're learning how to function as an adult in the workplace. And you're very much, I think, also rewarded for being an independent thinker and sort of like standing out of the crowd, right? And what's really important is that you kind of develop your own point of view and you I mean, typically those who show that they're a leader, they think differently or like are not going to, whatever, just follow the herd, like tend to be the ones who get promoted or tend to be the ones who advance in some way. But the truth is that in your 30s, especially if you're looking to start a company or if you're looking to build a team or become a manager and get to the next level, it requires a very different skill set, which is very much about team. And that is a very hard switch to make. And I think that the sooner that you can understand that that's what is required of you at that stage of your career, the better off you are. And I think just developing your own point of view and kind of being, I don't want to say unapologetic because it makes it feel like a little bit irreverent, but just really confident in what that point of view is and being able to share it. I think that so much in my 20s in particular, raising money, for the first time and feeling like we're first time entrepreneurs. Like, we're lucky if you give us a check and just feeling like we don't belong and we don't deserve to be there. I wish I didn't feel that so much. I wish I did go in with a little bit more like, we're going to do it. No one's done it before. We're the team to do it type of an attitude. And I think also part of being a woman is that we want certainty and we don't want to be wrong. We don't want to claim to be something we're not and then disappoint. Like, and maybe it's just like me and Deepa in particular on the fundraising side where it's like, that's a little bit of how we're trained, a little risk averse in that way. But I think that if we all just acted like men a bit more, maybe it would help level the playing field a little bit faster and just
Yeah.
like asking for everything, whether qualified or not.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of women that I've spoken to so far, the realization that you got to ask for it.
You have to
Um,
ask for
like
it.
nothing will happen unless you ask for it. I mean, it sounds so idiotically simple, but I think it's been a theme across many of the women that I've spoken
Yeah,
to.
and I think what's really important is that people have to understand that they need to take control of their career. Their career is not just going to advance without them doing things like proactively to make it advance. So, for example, when I was at Coach Corporate in New York, when I was 23, I asked for a promotion to the next level up to help lead the e-commerce, the wholesale e-commerce channel. And that was a new channel. Like, this is 2008 at the time. Like, it was just being built out. But the truth is that, like, they wouldn't have considered me because I was so off mark for what they were looking for. They were looking for someone with 5 years of account management experience, particularly in e-commerce, but e-commerce had just existed for like a year, So it's like, I was like, hey, how about me? I would love to help build this out. And because I raised my hand and said, I would love this, I recognize I'm asking for a promotion, but like, I would love to be the one, they could give me feedback. And they gave me feedback saying, like, we want to see you be more present and be more vocal in front of senior leadership. And I said, okay, so I will. So, over 6 months of me proving myself of, hey, thanks for the feedback, but like, this is me showing that like I can take initiative and I can be a stronger voice in the conversation. They were like, yeah, you have the promotion. And I ended up being the youngest person who was ever in that role. Just like generally like for account management period. And I think that really helped also me build the confidence in like, hey, I'm going to leave now. At the end of 2008, my boyfriend at the time, now my husband, got a job offer to go to London. And it was like a terrible time to quit a job because like, how was I going to get another one because it was a global economic crisis? And they were like, are you sure you want to do this? I was like, I do, because I want to manage people and I also want international experience. I don't want to do the same thing for another year. I prioritize growth over safety. And I understand that is an extremely privileged thing to say, in particular in that environment. But I also was like, I want to try it. I just want to give it a shot, And I did. And luckily, look what came out of it is literally me working in the Coach store, hearing from customers every day what their problems were, and this idea for Dagne. So I mean, like, I think you have to go for things, but also you have to be not going for things and then like not realizing you have to put in additional work, like you have to continue to push yourself and elevate yourself if you want to be elevated.
Do you think of yourself as brave?
I think I am, but I never really thought I was because like, you see someone rush into a fire and you're like, oh my God, I could never do that. Like, like you see brave people, oh my God, and the subway, saving someone from the subway. Like you see like bravery and you're like, I can't do that. But just because you can't do everything that is brave doesn't mean that you are not brave in what you do.
Amazing. All right. I'm definitely running out of time. What's a success look for you now? Like, how do you kind of think about success?
For me, success has always been being fulfilled and being able to sustain yourself, but hopefully not wanting for too much, but also just being happy, And I know that sounds overly simplistic, which is why I say fulfilled, because sometimes things are not easy, but you were fulfilled by it, So happiness now, success for me now really looks like getting to do all the things I get to do. I love meeting people. I love the fact that my job is so multifaceted and it's ever evolving. And I love being in a growth focused job as well.
Amazing. All right. Last quick fire questions.
Okay.
Any bags from other brands that you'd like to own?
Absolutely not. No interest.
Good answer.
No interest.
Tell me one of your guilty pleasures.
I literally don't even, like nothing. Like I'll like indulge in like a full carby pasta. I don't know. Like I like don't have any vices. I don't even really watch TV. Like, I don't really have any. I guess
that's good. It's good to have no guilt in life.
I guess like splurging.
What's the best career advice, worst career advice you've ever had?
I don't know. Like, there's no like best or worst. I'd say that like when people always said like always raise more money than you think you will because like random terrible things will happen and you'll need to like have a little extra buffer. Once you live through some random terrible things, you're like, that was that. I understand now. That is so important, But like a lot of people say that, and it's just like total. Everyone just needs to know that. Worst advice, I wouldn't call it worst advice, but I would say that like there were many times in particular at the very beginning of our business when we were pitching in front of mostly like older men who were not the demo again, who were just like, do women who care about fashion really want anything that's organized? Do they care about that? As if that's so, God forbid, people be multidimensional. And it's, so it's just like all sorts of things being like, our conversation needs to end here now. So That's great.
Okay. What do you think your superpowers are that have helped you get to where you are?
My co-founders would say the following, that I'm a connector, a relationship builder, someone who can like put together like, oh, this person needs to chat with that and we could do this there. And also I'm a very excellent gift giver and sort of attuned to what people will really love and feel emotionally like touched, like, wow, you noticed this thing that I love. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that. Um, is there anything that you're trying to get better at?
Oh, so many things. I think now that I'm in my 40s, like creating muscle, and like, just like getting stronger.
Protein, heavy weights.
Exactly. All the things, all the things. So I think taking care of myself, I think also like knowing the tools that I need to continue to be successful. So like, hey, putting things on my calendar that will give me life, because sometimes you have a few hard days in a row, especially between children, aging parents, and then of course the business. And you need something to pull you out and to like fill your bucket up so that you can handle everything else. So I think just scheduling those things and just knowing and not, not sort of wobbling about it, just go ahead and do all the things because this is what you need for your machine to run.
Amazing. Do you have mentors? Have you had mentors?
I don't, I have a lot of founder friends who are, let's call it like one or two stages ahead of us. And so we ping them a lot and they kind of help us. But I think that in general, just always having like a board of advisors for you personally, whether it be, your partner or, other founders or people that you just know you can pull from who have really good perspective on things, is just imperative for anyone in life.
Amazing. All right, last question. Tell me about someone or something that you're professionally jealous of.
So I recently met Michelle Waller, who's the founder of Beyond Yoga, and she's just a lovely, amazing person. Um, had Beyond Yoga for 18 years before selling it to Levi's for 400 million, completely bootstrapped. And she just played that long game of just doing something well, consistently building brick by brick. She didn't take any shortcuts. She didn't take any loose, fast, easy money that would have been very different in terms of what choices she would have had. And she just did it right. And so I just think that she's just fantastic. And yeah, everyone should look up to Michelle for how to do it right.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I'm excited to say that you've given us a code.
Yes.
I've never done one of these before, so I'm going to
Oh,
say
awesome.
for anyone, so for any first-time customer that would like to get 20% off any full price item at dagnedover.com, just put in jealousy 20 for that 20% off, valid till November 15th, 2025. That's
Yes.
my first discount coupon for
Great.
amazing brand. I'm so grateful for your time. Yeah, I love how both inspirational but super practical, and just super sensible. All of your advice has been, it's been a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you so much.
This was so fun. Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you so much for listening. Please do take a look at some of our other episodes we've done. You can find more on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or all of them on professionaljealousy.com. Thank you to Shimmy, to Anomaly, the Unreasonable Studios. If you have any questions, feedback, or importantly, people that you'd like to see featured, let me know. You can follow me on LinkedIn or on Instagram. And of course, please subscribe, leave a review, tell others about it.